But if they can move those tests onto circulating tumor cells, so these are cancer cells that come from blood, you immediately get some extremely important advantages to do with repeat testing and ease of testing.
Hello, you're watching Proactive. I'm joined by Angle's CEO, Andrew Newland. Andrew, very good to speak with you. Could you start by explaining what this partnership with Myriad Genetics involves and why it's an important step for Angle?
Yes, hello, Stephen. We're very pleased with this. It's part of a critical part, actually, of Angle's strategy is to align the Parsortix system, which is very good at recovering cancer cells from blood, uniquely qualified in that regard, with large medical diagnostic companies that can use our sample for particular tests. And so we've been working very hard to align with very large medical diagnostic companies. Myriad Genetics is the first one of those to actually sign up with us to do a joint development program. They're a very important company. They're a well-established company. They've got, I think their quarterly revenues are over $200 million a year. So let's say just shy of $1 billion a year target. And they have 2,700 staff. They're very well trusted and established clinical laboratory with very good tests. And their tests are based, or not all of them, but most of their tests are based on tumor tissue. So that means the tissue biopsy that's cut out, which is fine, and they have a good business from doing that. But if they can move those tests onto circulating tumor cells, so these are cancer cells that come from blood, you immediately get some extremely important advantages to do with repeat testing and ease of testing. So that's a big opportunity, and it's an opportunity for Angle because Myriad are committed to paying the development costs of this work. And that means that during the process of development, Angle can secure revenues from our participation with Myriad, and it opens up a fabulous commercialization opportunity once we get through the current development stage.
Andrew, how will comparing Parsortix ctDNA with tissue biopsies demonstrate the potential advantages of your approach?
Well, what Myriad's interested in is the fact that a blood test is obviously minimally invasive. So a patient can easily have a blood test, whereas recovering tissue is much more challenging. The advantage for Myriad, if they can show they can get very similar or better results from circulating tumor cell analysis using the exact same downstream analysis test that they already have, then they can be looking at patients where the tissue biopsy wasn't possible for the patient, and so those patients don't get their test. They can also be looking at cases where the tissue biopsy was insufficient or unsuccessful. But critically, they can also move towards doing earlier testing because if you've got a suspected cancer, for example, then which you haven't decided to do tissue biopsy, you could decide to do a blood test. And critically, you can monitor patients with repeat testing. So that's the fundamental benefit of using Parsortix circulating tumor cell tests, is that you can repeat tests and longitudinally monitor patients on a minimally invasive way. So obviously, in terms of Myriad Genetics, they're a very go-ahead company. They've got a new strategy where they're trying to expand their business, and they're focusing on something that they call the cancer care continuum. And we can play directly into that and help them implement their strategy to expand their business. So it's a very good combination for both companies.
Andrew, if successful, how could this collaboration open up new revenue opportunities or expand Angle's market reach?
Well, obviously the key target for us is to get to clinical adoption by Myriad. That would generate revenues during the course of the development, but the major revenues obviously is once you get adoption in the market, because then there could be hundreds of thousands of tests undertaken by Myriad using our technology, and that would that they've got established clinical labs which would then become customers for our product. and we'd be selling the Parsortix systems to them. But obviously, each single test that's undertaken would require a Parsortix cassette, which is our consumable. So it's an ongoing revenue opportunity. We also see it as very important as, if you like, demonstrating the principle that many other companies could also follow. So we've got the opportunity that Myriad is looking at one particular test within their pathway at the moment, but they've got multiple other tests that could similarly adopt. But there are also multiple other companies like Myriad who could similarly adopt Parsortix. And as we've discussed before, what we're looking to do is to transform the whole of cancer diagnostics testing, basically identification of cancer and assessing which treatments would be successful for an individual patient. And to do that, what we've got to do is enable the existing industry. And this is a first and very, very important step for Angle along that pathway.
So what milestones should investors watch out for as this collaboration progresses, Andrew?
Well, we would expect to see the results of the trials that we're now starting with Myriad being published and made available, because obviously they want to share the outcomes of that. That will be important. We would expect to see progressively increasing development contracts with Myriad as they go through the different stages. We're starting off with the first level work, but there'll be much more work in the future. And assuming it's successful, then we would expect to see a series of, we'd have to negotiate this, of course, but we would negotiate with Myriad a series of milestone payments during that process. Now, one of the things that we can offer with Parsortix is quite unique, which is an exclusivity position. Now, that's not been negotiated as yet, but companies like Myriad have to compete with other companies, and the current tissue-based testing is a competitive market. But obviously, if you get exclusive access to the Parsortix system, and that's proven to give you the right sample, then there could be the potential for exclusivity agreements, which would be very, very important. And the key element that would come out of all of this is our overall objective, which is widespread adoption for the detection of cancer and subsequent treating of cancer. So a company of Myriad's stature, if they choose, following their development work, to adopt a Parsortix test, it would be extremely good for our business in terms of the revenue, the growth of the instrument sales, and an established and growing consumable sales base. So what we're looking really is this success to be repeated many, many times in other tests and with other companies. But we're delighted that Myriad has decided to work with us on this.
Andrew, I hope you'll keep us posted on progress as it goes on. Thank you very much for taking the time today.
Thank you very much.
Andrew Newland, the CEO of Angle.